4 divers crossed the warning sign and squeezed into a mysterious cave. Just as they were turning back, the leader was unfortunately ensnared by the guideline. He intended to ask his teammate beside him for help, only to discover that his teammate was also tightly bound by the guideline. They turned their eyes toward the remaining members, something even more terrifying. The 2 remaining members were also mercilessly ensnared by the guideline. This horrific scene is the incident we will recount today regarding the divers who perished in the state of Florida, USA, in the Vortex Cave. Vortex Spring, Florida, is located in the town of Ponce de Leon, Florida, USA, within a private diving park. The underwater cave is like a labyrinth. The temperature inside the cave is kept at a constant 20 degrees Celsius, and the water in the cave is crystal clear, allowing visibility to the bottom. The entire lake has a diameter of approximately 61 meters, and the total length of the entire cave system reaches up to 500 meters at a depth of about 75 meters. The cave management had placed a warning sign marking the maximum permitted diving depth for officially venturing further. The tunnel narrows suddenly, there is more turbulence, and a large amount of silt accumulates at the bottom with complex flow directions. This is an area that at that time few divers dared to set foot in. On the morning of April 12, 1980, 4 divers from the state of Texas, they were Ronnie Tanner, 24 years old, John Swan, 24 years old, Mary Starks, 24 years old, and Russell Tissot, 23 years old. All 4 held cave diving certifications. They had extensive deep diving experience. They were not novices, and the equipment they carried was complete and in good condition. According to their prior agreement, they slowly dived along the main guideline after entering the water. The water was very clear, but as the diving depth gradually increased, the light gradually became dim. The descent process went very smoothly. They dived while signaling to each other with their hands, ensuring everyone was in good condition after about half an hour. All 4 had reached a depth of approximately 75 meters where the warning sign was located. This was the turnaround point for most cave divers. However, at this moment, the 4 of them did not choose to turn back, but instead decided to continue diving deeper, challenging themselves in the mysterious area further down. They believed they were experienced and fully equipped, capable of dealing with any risks that might arise. Thus, they took the spare guideline they had brought with them, fixing one end to a protruding rock on the wall, while the other end was released slowly as they progressed, going deeper and deeper. The tunnel became narrower, forcing the 4 to reduce their speed. At the same time, the layer of sediment on the bottom also became increasingly thick, and every movement could stir up mud. As the depth increased, the water pressure also rose, and the rate of air consumption in their tanks was faster than expected. But at this moment, none of the 4 paid attention, still focused on exploring ahead. After nearly an hour of arduous movement, the 4 finally reached the bottleneck passage at a depth of approximately 107 meters. This was the final point they intended to explore. This segment of the road was extremely narrow. The width was less than 1 meter. All 4 stopped for a moment right before the passage and then decided to turn back because the passage was too narrow. When the 4 turned around, they could not straighten their bodies completely at the moment of turning. They accidentally became entangled in the guideline. At first, it was only slightly overlapping wires, but due to the narrow space, the guideline became entangled faster and faster, soon tightly binding all 4 of them. The 4 tried to signal each other with their hands, slowly untying the wires that were wrapping around them, but the narrow space made it impossible for them to perform effective movements. Even more terrifying was that a large amount of silt and sand was stirred up, and the water that previously had good visibility suddenly became murky. In the darkness, they fell into a state of extreme panic. They began to struggle frantically. They tried to escape from the wrapping wires, but the more they struggled, the tighter the wires wrapped. The amount of air in their tanks was depleting rapidly. Water pressure and the fear of suffocation constantly eroded their will. At this time, it had been more than 3 hours since they entered the water. The support team on the surface realized the situation was not right, concluded that the 4 people might be in danger in the cave, and immediately called the police for help. Rescue forces quickly arrived at the scene, and they slowly dived along the guideline. After more than 1 hour of arduous searching, they finally found the 4 trapped divers at the bottleneck passage at a depth of 107 meters. The scene before them deeply shocked the rescuers. As the 4 people were tightly wrapped together, their postures were twisted. Clearly, in the final moments of life, they had experienced intense struggles. They were motionless. There were no longer any signs of life because the ropes were wrapped too tightly. The rescue forces could not directly remove the bodies and had to remove the wrapping wires first. This process was extremely slow and dangerous, and the divers took turns working. It took a total of more than 3 hours to remove all the wires wrapped around the 4 people. After that, they slowly brought the bodies of the 4 people out of the cave. After the incident, the authorities conducted a detailed investigation and finally confirmed the full truth of the accident. The direct cause of death for all 4 people was suffocation due to the exhaustion of air in the tanks. The fins on the feet of all the victims were not used. This proves that in a state of extreme panic and darkness, they were unable to perform basic survival maneuvers. Coupled with the narrow cave environment, the amount of silt and sand stirred up resulted in visibility being nearly zero, which led to this tragedy. This catastrophic collective fatal accident shocked the global cave diving community and became an important turning point. In the history of cave diving safety development, it directly promoted the restructuring and perfection of cave diving safety rules globally. The content of this episode ends here. Thank you for following us. See you in the next episode.